Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Dave's Faves. I think we're up to like number 7, 8, number 9, I think we're up to now. That's exciting. I want to talk to you about Charles Valentin Alkan, the amazing, crazy French romantic, mysterious, reclusive, totally demented composer who's just been undergoing a huge renaissance in the past couple of decades, brought on largely by Ronald Smith. And the work I want to talk about is his Concerto for Piano Solo. Now, the Concerto for Piano Solo is one of the most amazing pieces in the entire Romantic repertoire. Alkan was his name. That's like it's one of those things. You know what I mean? His name wasn't Alkan. His name was Charles Valentin Morang or something, and he called himself Alkan. No one knows why. He was a pianist of such crazy technique that he made Liszt and Chopin nervous, Liszt particularly. But there was something else besides, because his music is of an absolutely Berliozian or Mahlerian extravagance. It has a certain morbidity and death obsession in places, which are really kind of cool. But beyond that, he was a master of form, as Liszt was definitely not, and as Chopin was definitely not terribly interested in, although when he wanted to be, he was amazing. But Alkan married just insane romantic technique and virtuosity to incredibly strict classical forms. In that respect, he was very similar to Berlioz, who had an extreme classicizing streak in him for all the craziness that was going on. And so there's this amazing combination of austerity on the one hand and extravagance on the other. And that makes him sound like nobody else. And the Concerto for Piano Solo is about 45 minutes long, with a first movement that lasts a good 27, 28, 30 minutes, all by itself. Just the first movement. It's a concerto in which the piano plays both the orchestral parts and the piano parts, quite often the two together simultaneously. It's really an unbelievable piece. And the finale. Oh, the finale. Well, the second movement is an adagio, which has a very Mahlerian funeral march in the middle of it. Ba-da-da-dum, 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 bum, bum. You know, one of those things. And the finale is Allegretto alla Barbaresca. Yeah, a Barbaresca. Doesn't that say it's not Barbarella, mind you? It's Barbaresca. I mean, barbarity. Gosh, it's amazing. It's just an incredible work. And the first time I heard it was, of course, the Ronald Smith recording that was on EMI or Arabesque, or it sort of floated around a bit. And that was what got me into it. And it's a very good performance considering Smith has his technical issues, but really he's a very, very thoughtful musician. However, the performance that just blew me away, totally blew me away, and really captured both the discipline of the music, the formal concision even in this half-hour long movement, but just that formal strictness. It's like it leashes the virtuosity and creates an almost unbearable tension in the music when it's played with equal attention to both aspects. And it's sort of hard to describe, but you hear it right away. Was this performance on Music and Arts by none other than Marc-André Hamelin, which was my introduction to Marc-André Marc-André Hamelin. It was amazing. He hadn't made many recordings at this point. He did the Ives Concord Sonata, on New World, and there were some CBC recordings, but they weren't widely available or distributed anywhere outside Canada. And so this thing showed up, and I just went, oh, wow, this is the one. And I have to tell you a story about it. I just have to tell you. I mean, we've talked about the music a bit. I know you're going to get it, or if you haven't heard it, you're going to hear it. And Hamelin re-recorded this for Hyperion, a performance which is really just as good. But I have a certain personal affection for this one. I own them both. And, you could pick and choose. Anyway, I was going after when I was running the Cannes Classical Awards in Cannes in France. I used to spend some time afterwards with a friend of mine, a conductor, Antonio de Almeida. Now, Almeida, I've mentioned him before because we talked about the disaster that was Andante, in which Yves Saint Laurent was trying to get a hold of this building in the south of France called the Fondation Armand Panegel, which was this. He was a music critic who got his hands on this bankrupt olive oil pressing plant on the Rue des Glaciers in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence. And Yves Saint Laurent wanted it for a house. And so he got his lawyer to waste a lot of money doing Andante, and he got the property. And now it's what it was always supposed to be, which was this sort of institute for audiovisual art. It had billions of LPs and films. This guy's whole collection was amazing. And in one corner of it was a beautifully restored studio apartment, or one bedroom apartment that Antonio de Almeida lived in when he was in France with his dog. And it was really a cool place. And after the Midem convention in Cannes, my friends and I would decamp to Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, and we'd hang out with Tony. And Tony did not have room for us to sleep. He did arrange when I was alone. I could stay in the gatekeeper's cottage in the property, which had a bed that was, once you got into, you could never get out of. It was true French goose-down stuffed countryside living. It was the most uncomfortable thing you've ever been in your life. And of course, plumbing was a sometime thing. And so when I had friends, or if a friend of mine came with me, we had to find a place to stay. There were a couple sort of bed and breakfasty type places, but Tony had a friend, a Russian pianist who shall remain nameless, who was a very, very nice gentleman, and he had purchased a rundown Provençal farmhouse. Another one of those places was like, the crumbling masonry and the no plumbing. If you actually used the toilet, terrible things would happen. So you had to sort of use a bucket and then feed it down the toilet. It was, you don't want to know the details. It was a great place. It was wonderful. And he agreed to let us stay there. And so I knew I was going to see this somewhat frustrated, but quite dignified Russian pianist. He made a few records. He was really sort of down on his luck career-wise. I'm not sure what he was doing with himself in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence, but there he was. And so I decided to bring with me this because I wanted to know if he knew the music and, if he'd heard it before. And I asked him, I said, have you heard, this work? Do you know it? He said, oh, I have the score. And he whips out this large volume. And I said, well, have you ever played it? And he said, no, I've never really taken a look at it. I've never really bothered with it. I just own it. I said, well, how would you like to hear a really great performance of it? We can follow along with the score. And I put this on, and we opened the score, and as it went, I could watch him. He was getting more and more depressed. His face was just falling. He was like, oh, my God. And when it was over, I just looked at me, and it was like, he's like, what's the point? He said to me, he said, what's the point? Why am I doing this? It was just so dismal. He's very Russian. And, even current circumstances notwithstanding, right? He was so completely flabbergasted and miserable at the technical mastery of this performance by Marc-André Hamelin. And it was just so funny. It really was. I mean, I didn't mean to make him miserable. It wasn't my intention at all. I was hoping he would play it. But it was far beyond him, and I think technically, as it is far beyond most people technically. And I just think that if you want to have a great time in piano music that isn't the usual stuff, because I was never really into the usual stuff. I mean, I played the piano, and my father was a piano virtuoso as a child. He was a competition-winning piano sort of person who hated it so much because his mother made him practice all the time that he refused to let me really have piano lessons, even though I wanted them desperately, and took them for a while, but he wasn't going to force me to practice or make anything of it. So I never really enjoyed the standard piano repertoire when I was growing up. I was always looking for other things, and this was the ultimate other thing. This is piano music for people who don't care about piano music, who just want to hear great, insane music. And that's what it is. And it just hooked me, and I've been an Alkanian ever since. And, Hamelin has recorded most of, Alkan's major stuff for Hyperion, and it's all marvelous. It's absolutely marvelous. I mean, he's a genius as a keyboard artist. But this is sort of where it all started, this music and arts recording of the Concerto for solo piano. And it is a prized item in my collection. There's no question about it. So keep on listening, folks. Thanks so much for joining me. Take care.